So what I'd like to do today is just talk through how you might set up a for loop in processing and just talk through how that for loop is created and how it works. So what we have on the left here is we have an array here which contains the values 2, 4, 6, 8, and they have array positions. So we start at position 0 and then 1, 2, 3. So a 4-item array has locations 0, 1, 2, 3. This bit underneath here, this is how I would create that within processing. So we've covered arrays already, but essentially I have int because it contains whole numbers, my square bracket to show that it's an array, and then a name. In this case, it's called myArray, very original. And then I have inside these curly brackets my items in the array. Now there are other ways I can add things and set the values of the array, but in this case we're just going to set those values from the outset. If I wanted to do something now to go through those values, I would have to deal with them individually as far as we know right now, right? So I would have to say print line my array at position 0, print line at position 1, 2, 3. But we can use a for loop structure to help us loop through that. Now there's only 4, so it probably doesn't seem like it's a huge problem to print out 4 lines. But when my array becomes thousands of items, I'm not going to sit and type out print my array item 999. So what we have is the structure looks like this. We have a for loop with for something goes in here. So we start off with for open curly bracket, just open bracket, sorry, close bracket, and then inside these 2 curly brackets, something will happen. So the first stage we need to do is we need to set a value. This is going to be our counter. So convention means that we create an integer called I. That is going to be our initialization. We can initialize this to start counting from any value, but convention says starting it from 0 is best. Then we have, while I is less than a number, I'm going to put 4 in here, which will become clear soon. This is my check. And I'm going to increase my number by 1. And that's going to be my increment, or my count. Now, I++ is exactly the same as I equals I plus 1. I can use both of them interchangeably. Plus plus is just a shorthand version to speed things up a little. So let me talk through how the computer will see this, and that should hopefully help you understand what all the parts are. So the first thing I'm doing is I hit 4 and the computer says, okay, I know that this is a repeating section of code, so I'm going to look for 2 things. I'm going to look for the open curly bracket and the close curly bracket that happens after this, and that's going to be my limits for now. The first stage of the for loop is that I've created an integer called I. So let's create int I, and in there we're going to put 0. Stage 2 is that I move to the check section. And the check is that I is less than 4. So I'm going to check, is I, which is currently 0, less than 4? The answer is yes. And because that answer is yes, I am then going to perform whatever action is in here. So the action that is going to be in there is going to be print a line with my array at position I. So I am going to print out the number 2. Once I've done this, I've reached the end of my for loop, and so I need to start thinking about how I'm going to increment this counter, this I value. And the increment I have is by 1. So I can now change this value, my in value, to be 1. I then have another check. Is 1 less than 4? Yes. And so I'm going to print out position of my I value. My I value is 1. Position 1 is number 4. And so I repeat this process. So if we speed it up a little, an increase by 1 gets me to 2. Is 2 less than 4? Yes. Print out position 2 is 6. Increase by 1 gives me 3. Is 3 less than 4? Yes. Give me position 8. Now, after 3 comes 4, as far as I know. 4 is 4 less than 4? No. So 4 is not less than 4. In that case, we skip from my counter right the way down. I've done that check, and I'm going to continue on with whatever code is written underneath here. So the 3 parts that I need to make my for loop, I need an initialization, I need a check, and I need an increment. This can increment by 1, or it can increment by any number. It can also decrease. So when you're counting through a for loop to check how many times something will run, pay particular attention to that increment.